We have spent the last few weeks doing a deep dive on the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, Jerome Powell, Donald Trump, and how it's going to impact interest rates and, in turn, the housing market. But then this morning, the Supreme Court entered the housing chat and what's going to happen with interest rates with their ruling on tariffs. They ruled in a 6-3 decision that Donnie does not have legal authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose sweeping tariffs on imports. How is that going to matter for your real estate strategy? Stick with me. We've got a lot to cover today. This morning's news brought one of the most consequential legal and economic rulings of the entire year. It's only February, but still, let me have it. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down a significant portion of Trump's tariff program. This tariff drama has been a very major part of the administration's promises to make America great again, at least financially. Interestingly, though, earlier this week, I was reading an article from Bloomberg about how the tariffs weren't working. Keep in mind, they've been in place now for a while the Supreme Court was pondering their legality, they've been very much in force. But the U.S. posted one of its largest annual trade deficits in decades for 2025. This is tricky, so let me explain. In 2024, the deficit was bigger, but after major efforts with these wild-ass tariffs, the deficit hardly budged in a full year. Is that on Trump? Well, the December deficit alone was $70.3 billion. It's largely because imports continued to outperform exports. A trade deficit means the U.S. is importing more goods, meaning supporting other global economies, than it's exporting, than it's selling out. When a trade deficit becomes persistent, it creates pressure on pricing within our economy. The shortfall for the full year of 2025 was $901.5 billion. Now, Trump has explained that he started this trade war to reduce our reliance on foreign goods and that it would be foreign companies that would bear the brunt of these costs. But the data we received this week showed it was mainly American companies and American consumers paying for Trump's tariffs. What does this have to do with real estate? Well, as mentioned, tariffs raise the cost of imported goods. They're like a tax on consumers because manufacturers and retailers pass the higher cost on to their consumers. This contributes to inflation, of course, especially when it comes to electronics, lumber, appliances. So the Supreme Court batting down these tariffs could ease inflation concerns on some important everyday goods. This could be a good thing. We could have seen a really big rally on mortgage bonds as a result of this news this morning, but unfortunately, the Supreme Court isn't really catering to my production goals for the year. Their ruling also meant that companies and importers may now seek refunds on the tariff revenue the government collected to the tune of $175 billion. Not good for our balance sheet. But Trump is not one to go down without a fight. He's saying they'll pursue other legal avenues to make sure the tariffs stay in place. My hope? That he doesn't. This has never been a CYA type blog, so I'm just going to shoot you straight. I don't want the tariffs to be back in the news creating more inflation concerns. My hope is that this ruling eases one component of the Fed's very complicated rate calculus. Reducing tariff pressure can ease inflation concerns. Please, just focus on that, Powell. Please. If inflation continues to look like it's cooling, it'll go even beyond the Fed's policy. It reduces pressure on long-term interest rates because stories matter more than the math. Investors trade on expectations for inflation. When they price bonds, so cooler inflation expectations can push yields down, including that treasury yield that is very closely correlated. It has an inverse relationship with mortgage interest rates. The only problem is uncertainty. Real estate markets don't like it. From the buyers and sellers on Main Street who will delay decisions until they can make sense of the headlines, to the investors on Wall Street, the traders, determining the demand for mortgage bonds. This is where a good decision-making framework would really come in handy if someone had made one designed to give you clarity. Here's my takeaway for the week. Buyers who have affordability now are king. More and more headlines are pointing to this moment as a moment of opportunity for those who can break into the housing market. We don't know how long it will last, and of course, it's still a challenge to find the right house with such limited inventory. But those who are qualified now and shopping seriously, it's becoming increasingly obvious that they have an advantage. Once it becomes certain, though, the window's gone.